Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So my next interview is another Hot Docs interview, and I think, we're probably up to about 6 or 7. We're here today to talk with the director, Neasa, about her new film, School Life. It is a delightful journey. It's kind of like a road movie, but all happens within the context of a schoolhouse. And this beautiful, gorgeous setting and wonderful people, a deeply relational film. You're gonna love it. I mean, this is a film that is full of energy in its own way. It's full of hope. There's a sense of humor. This is all about building stronger relationships. It seems to me from the ground up, and we open up by talking about Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. How cool is that? Coming right up, don't forget davidpecklive.com for more information about my podcasting, my speaking, a little bit of my writing as well. If you want to support what I do through Face to Face, you can do that through patreon.com, and also rabble.ca for more information about other interviews as well. Coming right up, we're talking about the Canadian premiere of the film School Life at Hot Docs, coming right at you. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We are joined by another very special guest today. Always very special guests here on Face to Face. Neasa Chianáin is with us here today to talk about her new film, School Life, Hot Docs, Canadian premiere, a delightful film. Neasa, the first important question is, did I get your last name right? Did I pronounce it properly?
You did an excellent job.
Thank you, because we know my Gaelic is very poor. So thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
So can we start with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star?
Yes, you can start. Okay.
Isn't that kind of where it all begins, really, in a sense? Singing, sort of. I mean, it was just such a beautiful way to end your film, and for right out of the gate. By the way, congratulations! What a delightful journey! What a beautiful film, and it's just there a lot more going on than meets the eye. It seems to me.
Good. Yeah.
So, yeah, children, education. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, fairy tales, stories, mystery, wonder. I mean, is that what kind of drew you in a sense, at the beginning?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was really a search for a school for our own children. At the time,
okay.
That's how the whole sort of journey began.
Isn't that interesting? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we were living up in the northwest of Ireland, which is kind of quite a rural part of the country, and it's quite a homogenous community. And our children were attending a small village school there. And we thought that this was kind of an idyllic setting, but then you kind of realized that there was very little diversity. And we were really looking for a more broader education. And we wanted an education that wasn't so dominated by the Catholic Church as well. So we started looking locally at other schools, but like in rural areas around Ireland, there's very little choice. So we cast the net a bit wider and wider, and we went to visit non-denominational schools. And then finally we realized we would have to move, we would have to go somewhere. So we found Headfort. It was the last primary boarding school in the country. And we found it on a website to begin with, and it was the letter of the headmaster that first attracted us.
Okay.
Because in it he was talking about, the happiness of the whole child.
Oh, okay.
And that was that was a really good starting point for us. So we drove down to meet him and really loved what he had to say, and decided that we would move down there as a family and we would send our children there as day pupils.
And he appears in the film throughout, correct?
Yep, he is. Yeah, he himself was. I mean, Hedford, the school, it's been running since 1948.
Right.
and it's set. The environment is spectacular. It's set in an 18th century house. They have like a 48-acre wood. It's quite a special place. It's still rural, but the headmaster was a student in the school. He first went there when he was 7, and then after sort of a long meandering career as an educationalist, he was in the Dalton School in New York. He came back to Headfort with quite a progressive kind of view on education. So the school basically it's different from other primary schools in Ireland in that it's sort of the subjects are they have teachers for every specific subject.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We just loved what we saw, and our kids attended the school for a year, and we saw them blossom and thrive. And then at the same time, the headmaster was aware of our previous work, and he asked us, would we be interested in making a film about the school? Wow. Because nobody really knows about the school. I know, we couldn't. It's
lovely to be invited.
Exactly. And we thought, David and I both had been to boarding schools as children. I went when I was 11, and I had quite a positive experience. But David was 7 when he was sent, and his parents were living in Nigeria at the time, and the Biafran War had broken out, so they sent him to a school in the UK. But he was only 7, and it was quite a traumatic experience for him. So we had kind of conflicting views about boarding school, and both of us were quite curious to know, well, what does the 21st century boarding school look like?
Right. Yeah. Which is so interesting, that almost sounds like it would have made a great log line. What is the 21st century boarding school? Because your opening shots certainly don't look your establishing shots certainly don't look very 21st century.
No,
you know what I mean? It's just,
no, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe the Jimi Hendrix mural, but. So tell me, you said you were looking for a broader education for your kids. What do you mean by that? Broader education? Is that more relational? Is that more holistic? The whole child, looking for the happiness of the whole child. Is that what you meant by broader?
Yeah, well, both. I mean, we wanted it to be non-denominational. Because we believe that children should be taught religion, but that they should be taught all religion.
Right.
And we also, I think it is about the whole child. I mean, every child is different, and we really felt that this was a school that recognized, that children were different, and it gives them immense freedom in a safe environment to discover who they are, to discover where is it that they excel. So if they're not academic, maybe it's in music. If it's not in music, maybe it's in art. If it's not in art, maybe it's in sport. But they really try and work to kind of build confident children that kind of find their little space or their little niche in life. And, I think that's just
And you and David, you tease it out so beautifully. It's so relational. The space. What I got was from this, many things, I suppose, but was, most of my education, I would argue a lot of it, not most, but, kind of transactional, I guess you could say. Here's what you got to read, here's what you got to write, get it done, get it in by this date, and you get your A+, you get your B-, and you move on. Yeah. And I remember my daughter, Victoria, was learning mathematics at a very young age, and I thought, as I was watching some of the scenes from your film, especially the music stuff and that wonderfully, the mural behind them, and it's just such a wonderful moments that you create there and show and for us. I just thought, what about play? Where does play come into this?
Exactly.
And how could your film, I don't know, change the way we look at pedagogy?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what it is. This school, it's not afraid to allow children to play, because through play they learn. And that's what we see, with the 3 characters that we focus on, like Ted, who has dyslexia. It's not about, sitting down with a teacher one-to-one learning how to read, but Amanda, who has an absolute passion for literature, but she gets them to perform, because he is a performer, and she gets them to play, the ghost in Hamlet. And and you can see the way that she never draws attention to his dyslexia. Like you wouldn't know, you hardly even notice that she's reading the lines for him to repeat. It's just so tenderly done.
Yes,
how she kind of encourages him.
Tenderly done is a great phrase, and I mean, you must have really seen this place in a whole different light. First, I guess, as a parent, and then getting kind of the feedback from your kids as students, but actually kind of living it for a significant amount of time. You must have. I mean, it strikes me as an intimate place to begin with.
No, it wasn't. Well, we knew, like, the way we work is, we really try and get to know our characters really well, and we try and create that intimacy. So literally it was just David and I who were filming. Like, I did the camera, David did the sound, and we asked the headmaster, like, we wanted to work observationally. We didn't want to interview people. We didn't want any voiceover. We wanted to show people the world, to bring them into the world. So what we asked the headmaster was, could we have an office in the school so that we became part of everybody's daily life. And so we were never the focus of, the film crew are here today. That was never it. We were always there. And then people just accepted us, the children and the staff. And so that sort of wall disappeared. And we tried to become part of the group. So, when we were with the kids, they let us into their circle. They really accepted us as part of the group. And the same with John and Amanda. And with John and Amanda, I have to say, it did take a while. I mean, in the beginning, they thought, they had no interest in us as filmmakers.
I think I could get that sense from what little I now know of these folks.
Yeah.
They wouldn't really give a rat's ass about a couple of filmmakers coming in to tell their story. They're there to teach kids and clearly to love each other. It's just so, and again, that just so. I mean, how beautiful is that you've got this couple that have dedicated their lives to teaching kids, to mentoring kids, really, right?
Yeah. No, I know.
That's the other thing for me. Like I'm actually an electrician by trade, so I had to do. I don't kind of, what would you say? I don't practice anymore. Anyway, I did 8,500 hours as an apprenticeship. Working side by side, elbow to elbow with people, learning how to become a better electrician. It seems to me that might be something that we've kind of lost, certainly in Western pedagogy. Maybe the question is, did we ever have it in the first place?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like with Headfort, it didn't seem like there was like a particular pedagogy. Each teacher kind of brought. I mean, with John and Amanda, it was their 46 years of experience.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you see in the film that they're still learning. You see Amanda giving out to John about, well, that was the wrong way to do that. Like you shouldn't have done it like that. Because she does. She's going to put her her walls up, her defenses up. So and John, even in his 70th year, was still humble enough to sort of go, yeah, you know what, I got that wrong. I'll go and apologize. And I think that was what was lovely. It's like, they're teachers, but they're not afraid to get it wrong and then just to correct it and to try a different approach. And then, like with if you talk like with Dermot, like what he brought from the Dalton School was like the Socratic method, where he wasn't interested in any kind of Dermot, sorry, is the headmaster.
Right.
He wasn't interested in any kind of rote learning. It was all about let's pick a subject and let's discuss it and let's listen to each other's opinions and let's move things through that. It was much more dynamic way of approaching a subject rather than going in there and saying this is right, which is what you see in the same-sex marriage class.
Yes, that was fascinating.
Wasn't it? And I mean, and also like even introducing the idea of same-sex marriage to 10 and 11-year-olds. Like, I mean, they don't bring they speak to the kids on the same level.
Right,
they don't
very
tone it down. Yeah, exactly. And and that's one of the funniest scenes in the film. It's just like to see the viewpoint of the children and how they see things and how they try and, figure it all out. And yeah, I mean,
I'm pretty sure it was Einstein who said that most, kids before they were, 5 or 6 years old know more about physics than most scientists do, because they have a sense for how the world works. They may not have the framework and the language and the definitions and all the labels we give it, but
Yeah.
they still have this understanding. And I think I think it's beautiful and rich, and I think it's deeply relational. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's so remarkable about what you've captured in this film. I mean, just from John and Amanda, their relationship, but then how that's transmitted, how that's passed on through the kids, and in a variety of different ways. And it's all just done in such a yeah, as you said, tender, gentle, quirky way. There's no question, but really quite delightful. Hey, tell us what in place of the parent. What does that mean?
Okay, well, you see, that the original title of this film, it was the working title. It was in loco parentis, which is Latin for in place of the parent, and that is the legal status of a teacher. When they're looking after kids, they are as responsible or even more responsible for the children than their parents are. And so we thought that because this was a boarding school, a primary boarding school, this was the ultimate example of in loco parentis, because the children were there 24 hours 7. And also we saw the school, like over the years, what we observed, we really felt this was like a surrogate family.
Right.
And we felt that John and Amanda took the place of, the grandparents, and Dermot, who had once been their student as a 7-year-old and now the headmaster, he was kind of like the father, and then the matrons were all kind of like the mums, and
right.
And it just felt like that. I mean, I know lots of schools pitch the thing of like, oh, we're a family, we're a community, but it's rare that you actually see it happening. And like when we, with John and Amanda before, like when we were doing our research about the film, before we decided that we were definitely going to make this film, we spoke to a lot of alumni. So we spoke to 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds about what their experience had been like in the school. And it was John and Amanda's names that kept coming up. Like they were the two teachers that left their mark. And it's funny, like with John and Amanda, if you talk to them about any of the alumni, they remember them.
Isn't that remarkable?
They remember their nicknames.
It's remarkable.
And they remember that, and like even like because we brought it on a small sort of cinema release around Ireland, the film, and alumni would, show up and say, oh, I was there in whatever, 75, or I was there in, the 80s. And then we'd text John and say, oh, so-and-so showed up. And each time he remembered them. And that's how he sees them. He always calls them his kids. Like They are his children. Well, and they will forever be his children.
Well, there's something really beautiful about the sense of inclusion that speaks to. And I'm not sure that my kids are feeling it at school. I'm not sure that I felt it at school. And I don't mean just from the teachers. I don't want to be too hard on my teachers. But it's also the environment. I mean, Michel Foucault would call most schools today postmodern gas chambers. The architecture is just horrifying. It's bricks and steel doors and fluorescent lights. But I mean, here we've got this rich, lovely environment that, as you said earlier on, a space to flourish in. And I get that sense from John and Amanda, and I would imagine just you belong here, right?
Yeah.
You are welcome here.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's that we tried to show part of that in the film through Olive, the gap student who comes back to help sort out the bands that can't sing.
Yes.
Olive was once a student there.
Yeah, she's very funny.
She is very funny, but there were many Olives. There was a constant stream of kids who had been to Headfort, maybe in between finishing secondary school and going on to university, or having just finished university, all coming back for, short periods of time, maybe some of them for a week, some of them for a term, all because they kind of wanted to spend time in the school, they wanted to give back to the school. So, this was something that happened all the time, and I thought, this is extraordinary. Like, this isn't normal. That kids who've been to a school want to come back. And like John and Amanda's house, like there's a well-worn path to their house where, you'll call down there and there'll be a 50-year-old sitting there having lunch with them. Or,
the shot of the dog on the kitchen table is it's just brilliant. The books, I love the way Amanda surrounds her students in books. I mean, how wonderful and delightful. And what are you ultimately communicating? It's all, the symbols and the metaphor there are just utterly astounding. Why is this the only boarding school in Ireland for kids aged 7 to 12? Is there just not enough demand for it? Is it too expensive? What's going on there?
I think they've become unpopular. I think people
okay.
think of boarding schools being as like very draconian.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, you're going to
I
get your
think,
hands wrapped.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think I think it is financial. It's awfully difficult to keep something like that going. I mean, like say Headfort now, I think they have a staff of like 30 to 33 people maybe full time, and there's 85 kids,
Wow.
there the year we were there. So
Wow.
I mean, so keeping all that going, and they get no state support at all.
Right.
So it is difficult for these schools to keep going, and a lot. I mean, I think the year we started filming, the year before, the second last boarding school closed down because they just weren't able to do it. So
well, it's
yeah,
not, and it's not surprising it's not getting government funding. I mean, it's not as easy, right? It's not as easy. I mean, maybe that's too cynical of an approach, but it's not. The word I used earlier was transactional. This takes a lot of care and attention. It seems to me.
No, it does. But like say the secondary schools in Ireland, most of the private schools, they do get government support. But I think there's this sort of idea that secondary school is more important than primary school, which like I having seen what I saw in this school, for me, I think, God, they got it so wrong.
They're
because
so wrong. Yeah.
It's like it's the moment the light switch is turned on, for the child. No, but seriously, like if you switch on the light switch, and they discover the joy of learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then that will stay with them for the rest of their life.
So there was a beautiful line that you kept in. It seems to me very intentional. One of the students, I think, talked about a flower. I wrote it down because it just a huge smile. A flower explosion. And I don't even remember what he or she was talking about, but it was just so wonderful, so delightful, and it was kind of like that. That's the argument to your statement about secondary school. No, this is where it begins.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
you notice flower explosions when you're at this age, and I think that's kind of what Einstein was talking about. As you get older, you lose that sense of certainty, that sense of wonder, that sense of whatever, intentionality as a kid. We as a society, and parents and all that, we squeeze it out of our kids, it seems to me.
No, exactly. And that's exactly what we found happened to our own children, and that's what we saw in the other children, and hopefully what they learned, they will carry that through with them, for their secondary and their university, experience, because, education, learning, all that should be fun. It should be joyous.
It should absolutely be fun. I have to say again how much I loved your film. We're going to have to wrap it up here in a second, but and I honestly I could talk to you all day about this. This is just wonderful, marvelous stuff. I can't tell you how much fun the concert was and the wild thing. I mean, I don't know if it was the rehearsal. I think it was the rehearsal.
It was a rehearsal.
Oh, hysterical capital H. I mean, it's just so wasn't about the wild thing. I mean, it was awesome. Absolutely wonderful. So I think it was John who was talking about one of the rehearsals, and I just sort of had this thought now, and he said something like, they hit all the right notes, but they weren't necessarily in the right order. And do you know what? For me, that's kind of what this is all about, this school. We're going to hit them all right, but we're not. They're not going to be in the right order. It's going to be a little messy from time to time. That one beautiful scene with the young boy taking photos and walking into the bush, and with Amanda, I just kind of went, oh no, where are we going? And again, you go, it's not easy. This is we aren't we a bundle of paradox and contradictions, and that and now Headfort has to deal with that in these kids, and I just so want to celebrate what you've done. It's just such a beautiful film, and I wish you all the success with it in the world.
Oh, thank you, David.
Yeah, and this is the Canadian premiere, right?
Yep, this is the Canadian premiere, and it'll be on tonight. I think it'll also be on Wednesday during the day, and again on Sunday. And then Blue Ice are our distributors, so they're planning a cinema release for it. It'll certainly be on in the Ted Rogers Cinema here in Toronto.
Wonderful.
And that'll happen sometime at the end of September. So yes, please look out for it and support it, and it will make you feel positive about the world.
Well, so many documentaries. I heard somebody joke about documentary film recently, and he said, "Oh, those are the kind of movies that for people who want to feel sad."
Yeah. No, I know, and
that's not your film at all.
No, it's not. It's not. And look, all those other documentaries, they're so important, but yes, every so often, you need hope. And
absolutely.
And,
yeah.
I think this is a film that, is hopeful.
It's inspiring, it's delightful, it's engaging, it's just so many things. It's, I so love what you've done with this, Neasa. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. We've been talking about the film at Hot Doc's Canadian premiere tonight, actually, which won't mean a whole lot to our listeners, but coming up on May the 3rd and May the 7th as well. School Life. Neasa, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, David. Pleasure.